Hi, good evening. This meeting is hereby called to order. I'm Frida Hardage, and I'm a member of the MARTA Board of Directors. With MARTA's ongoing commitment to fiscal responsibility, I come before you today to review the proposed fiscal 2026 operating and capital budget. Is there anyone present today who needs a sign language interpreter or translator? Should anyone need assistance, staff is available. This public hearing is being conducted today at MARTA headquarters, 2424 Piedmont Road, Northeast, Atlanta, Georgia, 30324. Let me begin by introducing the MARTA senior staff present. We have Carrie Rocha, our Chief Capital Officer, with us this evening. Thank you. The MARTA Board, when making the final decision on the proposed budget, will consider comments received today, along with comments made via email, regular mail, and voicemail. Please be assured that MARTA is interested in everyone's comments. In accordance with the MARTA Act, the MARTA Board of Directors has established rules governing public hearings, and copies of these rules have been made available to each of you. I particularly call your attention to Rule Number 2, which requires that all persons desiring to be heard must register with the official presiding over the hearing. Speakers will be heard in the order for which they register. Anyone who desires to provide written comments during this hearing may submit comments via email to publichearinginfo@itsmarta.com. Individuals may also provide oral comments about the proposed operating and capital budget by calling 404-848-5299 to submit comments by voicemail message. Additionally, written comments may be submitted to us by mail, MARTA, External Affairs, 2424 Piedmont Road, Northeast, Atlanta, Georgia, 30324. The complete draft operating and capital budget can be viewed online at itsmarta.com. Physical copies of the proposed budget will be available for your review at MARTA headquarters until May 20th, 2025. Once approved by the MARTA Board, the fiscal year 2026 operating and capital budget will go into effect on July 1st, 2025. At this time, we will hear Greg Patterson, our Deputy Chief Financial Officer and Budget and Grants, and Jax Colgan, Acting Director of CIP Budgeting for Centralized Program Management Office, who will provide an overview of both the proposed fiscal year 2026 operating and capital budgets.
Thank you, Ms. Hardage. I am Greg Patterson, Deputy Chief Financial Officer, and it is my pleasure to present to you. For the agenda, we will start with a review of fiscal year 2025 MARTA successes, followed by MARTA's new strategic priorities. I will then share the fiscal year 2026 budget premise, budget assumptions, and risk factors that could impact the delivery of the budget. I will also provide a review of the budget timeline. I will then provide an overview on the proposed operating budget with a review of service levels, headcount changes, and forecasts for operating revenues and expenses for fiscal year 2026. After this, Ms. Jax Colgan will take over and walk through our proposed capital budget for fiscal year 2026. She will review the capital budget assumptions, the proposed sources and uses, the state of good repair budget, the More MARTA City of Atlanta capital plan, the More MARTA Clayton County expansion, and then we will invite comments from the public. All right. Before moving on to the proposed budget, I would like to highlight some successes from fiscal year 2025 that MARTA will use as a springboard to the proposed fiscal year 2026 budget. In the interest of time, this is a small sample of the full list of accomplishments so far this year, but stand as examples of MARTA's commitment to our customers. MARTA's Customer Experience Division put in the groundwork to replace our methods of fare collection with a new automated fare collection system that will feature new fare gates and open payments. We completed the design phase and began testing of the new fare technology and infrastructure. MARTA is also strong financially, as demonstrated by a confirmed AAA rating of 2 bond rating agencies, S&P and Kroll. In addition, MARTA saved approximately $8.2 million on recent bond transactions and secured $350 million in bond financing at a reasonable 4.59% true interest cost. MARTA is also safer and more secure. We received the Transit Security Administration Gold Standard Award for our triennial baseline assessment for security enhancement audit. Delivering on our promises for improved safety, MARTA launched a bus collision safety initiative to adopt a proactive risk-based methodology and harness technological innovations. To report successes in the capital program, MARTA implemented the fully automated parking access and revenue control system, and we've completed 96 of 116 escalators and 102 of the 111 elevators in our vehicular circulation rehab program. We also completed the East Lake Station North Pedestrian Bridge replacement, including installation of a new elevator and replacement of concourse level barriers and railings. Finally, under our Operational and Urban Planning Division, MARTA completed the bus stop replacement upgrade program, providing new branding, enhanced signage, and information at over 9,000 bus stops and rail station bus bays. Okay, I'd like to introduce the new strategic priorities that govern MARTA's budget development. The strategic North Star for MARTA will be to enhance safety, improve cleanliness, and increase reliability. This lens was applied to every budget decision in the development of the fiscal year 2026 proposed budget and used to prioritize the 10-year capital improvement program. The fiscal year 2026 budget premise is to support MARTA's new strategic priorities by ensuring our expenditures match our revenues while budgeting activities that improve cleanliness, enhance safety, and increase reliability. To accomplish this, the budget trimmed recurring non-labor expenses that did not directly support this strategy, as well as trimming positions that were identified as low priority by this matrix. The budget continues to deliver the capital program, including our obligations on the 15th Amendment, and prepares MARTA for a new collective bargaining agreement. The operating budget assumptions include a 3% increase to all non-represented positions. The split of sales tax revenue is 55% to fund operating expenditures. The budget fully funds our collective bargaining agreement obligations. Healthcare and pension costs increased by $4.4 million over fiscal year 2025 budgeted levels. Fare revenues are assumed to be lower than the fiscal year 2025 levels, primarily due to the implementation of the automated fare collection 2.0 systems. This budget also introduces a soft and flexible hiring freeze to manage expenditures, and we are assuming a 7% across-the-board vacancy savings on all salaries and wages, and have a net reduction of 191 positions in the fiscal year 2026 budget from the adopted fiscal year 2025 budget. We also have several risks identified that could impact the delivery of the fiscal year 2026 budget. The first is labor availability. MARTA has persisted at around 11% vacancy through fiscal year 2025, and while we're able to regularly hire to fill vacancies, turnover has still been a challenge. Tariff pressures, inflation, and supply chain issues have the possibility of impacting the estimated price of goods and services. Fuel costs have been on a downward trend, which is favorable to MARTA, but sudden changes in price is a continued risk that could impact our budget. The viability of the budget is also largely dependent on the continued forecasted growth in sales taxes. The cost of accident claims grew significantly during fiscal year 2025, and while this was considered an anomaly, any additional claims beyond our actuarial estimates can put pressure on delivering the budget. As mentioned in a previous slide, healthcare and pension costs have increased based on our latest actuarial and market assessments. Performance issues in investment markets also place pressures on pension costs. Lastly, for mobility services, these have increased beyond our forecasts and could impact our budget for fiscal year 2026. As you can see our budget timeline, this is for the 26 budget. We briefed the board on Friday, May 9th. Today is the first of our two public hearings. We will have one more public hearing on Thursday, May 15th. After this, we will have a Business Management Committee presentation on May 22nd, with a final vote on the proposed budget by the board on June 12th. Okay, I'll now walk through our operating budget. The fiscal year 26 budget for bus, rail, mobility, and streetcar service are set above fiscal year 2025 levels. This is due to accounting for the increase in planned special events, including World Cup, the annualized impact of MARTA's new shorter headways on rail service, and to accommodate the rollout of on-demand service associated with bus network redesign. This slide shows the headcount plan for fiscal year 2026 and the difference over fiscal year 2025 adopted budget. The net impact is a reduction of 191 positions to accommodate MARTA's reduced fare revenue forecast and the need to balance expenditures to available revenues. So now we're looking at the 4 years of revenue in blue and expenses in orange. Starting on the left, you can see the fiscal year 2023 actuals, then the fiscal year 2024 actuals, the fiscal year 25 budget, and lastly, the fiscal year 26 proposed operating revenues and expenditures. Consistent with last year, MARTA uses reserve funds from operating carry forward to balance revenues and expenditures. The fiscal year 26 budget overall is a $2 million decrease under the fiscal year 2025 budget. The next slide will walk through our operating revenue forecasts. The fiscal year 2026 operating budget is funded by 55% gross sales tax receipts based on a forecast provided by the Georgia State University Economic Forecasting Center. The updated 30-year forecast was provided in December of 2024. The current forecast assumed gross sales taxes of $749.8 million in fiscal year 2026. Of this, $412.4 million is budgeted to support operating expenses. $86.9 million is anticipated from our formula federal funds to support preventive maintenance. Passenger revenue budget includes annual ridership decrease of $13.6 million due to the amount of anticipated revenue loss associated with the deployment of AFC 2.0. We expect ad valorem taxes to be at $36.8 million. Lease income, which is predominantly real estate leases, includes a small decrease of $0.8 million due to non-renewal of cell leases on MARTA properties. Advertising revenue was forecast to decrease by $3.3 million from reduced bus shelter advertising revenues while MARTA procures a replacement contract. Interest income was reduced by $10.2 million based on lower investment interest rates and a lower reserve principal balance. Lastly, fiscal year 2026 includes $23.7 million in operating carry-forward budget. This represents a portion of the forecasted operating surplus from prior fiscal years. This slide shows a visual breakdown of the operating revenues. As you can see here, over 63% of operating revenue comes from sales tax. The second largest category of revenue in fiscal year 26 is federal funding at $86.95 million, or 13.3% of the revenues. The third largest category of revenue in the 26 budget is passenger revenues at $68.37 million, or 10.5% of the revenues. And next, we'll step through the operating expenses plan for fiscal year 2026. We forecast total expenses to decrease by $2 million under the fiscal year 25 budget. Salaries and wages are down $20.2 million under fiscal year 25 budget to reflect the reduction in headcount. The fringe rate increased by $6.8 million due to increasing healthcare and pension expenses. General manager's contingency includes $10 million of non-labor and approximately $3.4 million of labor budget to allow flexibility for MARTA to address the budget risks identified earlier in this presentation. Contractual expenses are $14.6 million higher than fiscal year 25 budgeted levels to reflect one-time expenses associated with the implementation of AFC 2.0, World Cup support in a variety of areas, the Argo contract in our operations, and increased expenses associated with paratransit services contract. Material expenses decreased by $8.3 million to reflect reduced quantities of parts, maintaining an expected low price for fuel, and a reduction in miscellaneous supplies to meet reduction targets. Casualty and liability costs increased by $2.7 million to reflect a pattern of higher claims captured in the actuarial analysis for MARTA. Lastly, the capital allocation was reduced by $2.9 million to reflect a reduced capital program in fiscal year 2026 as well. As a visual breakdown of costs, you can see labor is always MARTA's largest expense, comprising almost 61% or just under 2/3 of expenses when you add salaries, wages, and overtime together. The second largest share of expenditures is contractual services at nearly 20%, which is predominantly driven by our contracted paratransit service, though it includes staff augmentation in several areas. Materials and supplies make up 5.7%. This slide provides a breakdown of expenditure trends by division from fiscal 23 through fiscal year 26. While there are no dramatic shifts on this slide, I do have a few takeaways to share. The increase in General Manager Division reflects the impact of increased police compensation. Reductions in operations and capital programs clearly reflect the reduction in budgeted workforce in those divisions. And I will now turn the presentation over to Ms. Jax Colgan, Acting Director of the Capital Improvement Budget.
Thank you, Greg. Good evening, everyone. I am Jax Colgan, the Acting Director of CIP Budgeting. Today, I will present for you our proposed capital budget for fiscal year 2026. First, I will cover our budget assumptions. The budget assumes 45% share of the core penny sales tax allocated for capital projects in fiscal year 2026. There is $197 million in projected grant revenue for grant-eligible projects. The budget assumes a need to issue $250 million in debt to support capital expenditures. Projects submitted through the annual budget call process were thoroughly reviewed and evaluated against a set of essential benchmarks. Key evaluation criteria included the following: project phase, readiness, and pending contractual commitments, projects supporting our strategic goal for safety improvements, projects supporting the new rail cars, including facilities needed to support the changes for the operational support of the cars, projects associated with new buses, including charging infrastructure, continuation of the station rehabilitation work in the most critical stations, as well as prioritization of stations expected to have high ridership during the World Cup. Finally, the deployment of systems relative to new fare collection. More MARTA Atlanta projects are prioritized based on project schedules and planned project delivery in accordance with the programmatic sequencing plan. Similarly, more MARTA Clayton expansion projects are prioritized according to project timelines. In alignment with MARTA's strategic priorities, the Capital Improvements Program is positioning the system to be reliable, safe, and clean, ensuring we are fully prepared to support the World Cup. As I present the capital budget, you will see the information organized in several ways. Capital expenses are separated into 3 buckets. Those include the State of Good Repair Capital Improvement Plan, expansion projects funded through the More MARTA City of Atlanta, and expansion projects from More MARTA Clayton County. Starting with the State of Good Repair Program budget for fiscal year 2026, you will see projects broken down into the 5 asset categories you see on the screen. These categories are required by FTA and include the following: vehicles, which includes acquisition of both revenue and non-revenue types of vehicles; facilities and stations, which includes rail and bus facilities and equipment; office buildings, roofing needs, and facility parking lots. This category also includes underground storage tanks. Maintenance of way, which includes projects focused on the maintenance and replacement of track and track structures. Systems, which includes projects for power systems and equipment, automatic train control, elevators and escalators, and IT hardware and safe software. Finally, non-assets, which includes capital investment projects related to planning and design of projects, and environmental sustainability and safety. Organization of our budget in this manner allows us to track year over year how our funds are allocated amongst these assets. These investments can also be compared to other FTA transit agencies around the country. Moving on to the fiscal year 2026 planned capital sources and uses, the capital plan assumes a total capital program of $1.5 billion in planned sources, and a total of $901.8 million in proposed uses across each of the three funds that comprise the capital program. Sources for the state of good repair are budgeted at $815.4 million versus a planned use of $727.3 million. Sources for more MARTA Atlanta are budgeted at $354.4 million versus the planned uses of $148.1 million. And sources for more MARTA Clayton are budgeted at $338.9 million versus the planned uses of $26.4 million. On the following slides, I will review the sources and uses for each program in detail. Delving deeper into the State of Good Repair sources section of the proposed fiscal year 2026 capital budget, we will commence by examining the revenue sources amounting to approximately $815.4 million. This budget assumes a carry-forward balance of $163 million. Sales tax projections are planned at $243 million, presenting 30% of the total sources. Federal and state grant participation is estimated at $159.4 million at roughly 19%. In order to fully support the planned expenditures, this budget includes debt issuance of $250 million, representing 31% of the sources. In reviewing parts of the fiscal year 2026 State of Good Repair uses, the total budget expenditures are $727.3 million. The budgeted expenditures are separated by the 5 FTA asset categories and debt service. The largest asset category of the investments in fiscal year 2026 is for systems at $198.4 million, 27% of the budget. A substantial portion of these planned expenditures are for 3 projects that include $104 million for automated fare collection, $15 million for elevator rehabilitation, and $12 million for system-wide station phone upgrades. The next highest category is vehicles at $151.4 million, or 21% of the budget. Planned expenditures for the new CQ400 rail cars as well as new bus procurements comprise the majority of this budget. Facilities and stations projects are budgeted at $94.6 million, 13% of the budget. The largest budgeted projects in this category are for rail station rehabilitation and parking lot paving. Non-asset projects are budgeted at $86.7 million, 12% of the budget. The majority of this budget is $22 million for the CPMO support of capital programs, followed by $16 million for the bus network redesign. Lastly, we have the maintenance of way projects are budgeted for 4% of the overall $29.8 million, which is primarily for TR5 track renovation. Debt service is budgeted at $166.4 million, roughly 23% of our budget. The 10-year State of Good Repair capital plan includes $4.5 billion in project expenses and $2.4 billion in debt payments. This is a total projected expense of $6.9 billion. On the sources side, we are planning for $6 billion to be allocated to the capital programs through primarily sales tax and issuance of debt. There is an estimated $715.5 million in grants, both federal and state funded. As we look across the 10-year program, the largest projects are the communication-based train control system and the new rail car procurement. The combination of these two efforts amount to $991.7 million. Here is a summary of the top 11 State of Good Repair projects sorted by the 10-year total, which makes up nearly 60% of our entire fiscal year 26 budget. I want to explain our 5th highest project. We call it GASB. GASB stands for Governmental Accounting Standards Board. GASB GASB 87, Accounting and Financial Reporting Standard for Leases by Governmental Entities. GASB 96, Accounting and Financial Reporting Standard for Subscription-Based Information Technology Arrangements. Now I will be sharing information on the MARTA City of Atlanta program. The MARTA City of Atlanta revenue sources total $354.4 million for FY26. We start with a beginning balance of $244.3 million. This makes up 69% of our revenue sources. The sales tax capital allocation is $71.1 million at 20%. Our awarded grants make up 8% of the sources at $28 million, and our potential grants are $2.5 million at 1%. There is an interest income of $8.6 million at 2% of our revenue sources. Now we will run through the 10-year sources and uses. The total capital sources are $1.9 billion with a planned debt issuance of $210 million. This plan assumes $480.7 million in future federal awards over the next decade. The forecasted expenditures for MARTA City of Atlanta projects over the next 10 years is $1.5 billion with an additional debt service of $65.2 million for a total use of $1.6 billion. The top projects for MARTA Atlanta make up 87% expenditures of the program. MARTA Rapid A-Line, 5-Point Station Transformation, and Bankhead Platform Extension make up the top 3 projects for fiscal year 26 expenditures at 61.6%. Now I will be sharing information about the MARTA Clayton County program. The MARTA Clayton County revenue sources at $339 million for fiscal year 2026. We start with a beginning balance of $286.3 million, 84%. The sales tax capital allocation is $35.6 million, 11%. Our awarded grants make up 2% of the sources at $7.1 million. There is an interest income of $10 million at 3% of the revenue sources. Now we will run through the 10-year source and use plan. The total capital investment sources include $1.2 billion with a total planned expenditure of $1.17 billion. This includes debt service. This plan assumes $155.6 million in future federal awards and $375 million in debt issuance over the next decade. Top projects for MARTA Clayton County make up 79% expenditures of the program. MARTA Rapid Southlake and the Clayton County Maintenance Facility make up the top 2 projects for fiscal year 26 expenditures at 53.1%. This concludes my presentation for the proposed capital improvement program budgets for fiscal year 2026. I will now return the floor back to Ms. Hartage.
We will now receive comments from the public on this subject. Please come forward when your name is called, and I'll call on speakers in the order for which they registered. A court reporter is making an official transcript, and your testimony will be part of a public record. We want everyone who wishes to do so to have the opportunity to speak, so each speaker is limited to no more than 3 minutes. If there is anyone in the audience who would like to speak but you have not registered, please raise your hand and we will provide you with a registration card to fill out. As you're called, please give your name, address, and the name of an organization if you represent one. Individuals may appear or speak for his or herself, or any duly authorized local government, civic organization, community club, or business association. The first speaker at this public hearing is Matthew Fraden. Did I say that correctly? Fraden, okay. Okay, thank you, Matthew.
My name is Matthew Frandon. I live at 2835 Wendy Lane, which is in Marietta, Georgia, notably outside MARTA's jurisdiction. I'm still a regular writer of MARTA, though. I would just like to say some comments about the proposed CIP budget for 2026 and the amount of programs on it. It's refreshing to see new projects happening in the Atlanta area, especially with transit, in the past decade or so that MARTA has struggled to do so. But frankly, there's not enough. There needs to be more projects that have to be done, more planning that has to be done around that, and more stuff with shovels hitting the ground. Second thing, I would like to talk about some parts of the operating budget that concern me. First one being the Deputy General Manager's Department expenses have gone up by approximately, it seems to be over $4 million, which is quite an increase of, as noted, 264% compared to fiscal year 25. The reasoning given so in the budget book, I don't think is nearly enough to justify such a heavy increase. I think you should be more transparent about what's happening with that budget. Why has there been such a massive increase there? I think the public would benefit from that, especially as MARTA's image as an authority could be better on its budgeting. Second of all, I would like to speak to an issue personal to me relating to the planning and capital programs. I am a geosciences student at Georgia State, and I hope to get a career in transit planning someday. Seeing MARTA's reduction in the planning department and the capital programs, capital centralized program the chief capital programs departments concerns me with these big budget reductions, especially as Atlanta continues to grow as a big metropolitan area. I think that cutting these planning departments will severely hamper Atlanta's future when it comes to transit planning as a whole. So, thank you. I yield the rest of my time.
Thank you. Is there anyone else who would like to be heard at this public hearing? Well, you come right on up. I don't have a card, but you just give us your name and I'll be happy to make sure that you are heard.
Hi, good evening. First off, I want to say thank you to the public servants who've given their time tonight. I've been on the receiving end of public comment, so we'll hopefully not give you too hard of a time tonight. Thank you for spending it with us. My name's Doug Nagy. I'm an Atlanta resident at 880 West Peachtree Street in Midtown Atlanta. I'm a daily MARTA rider who loves this system and believes deeply in its potential to serve all of Metro Atlanta. But I'm very confused by this budget. If safety is now part of MARTA's new North Star, why is this budget cutting police officer positions just ahead of the World Cup? The police chief told the MARTA board that the agency is already short 150 officers since 2019, and the police officer cuts proposed by MARTA management are taking the agency in the wrong direction. Riders need to feel safe. Officers need backup. MARTA's police deserve our love and respect, not more officer cuts. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there anyone else that would like to be heard? If there are no others in attendance who wish to speak, I would like to note that you may submit written comments by May 20th, 2025 for consideration by the MARTA Board of Directors at the following address: MARTA, External Affairs, 2424 Piedmont Road, Northeast, Atlanta, Georgia, 30324. Written comments may also be emailed to customerservice@itsmarta.com. I would like to close by noting that there were 5 people present today, 2 made comments, there were no media representatives, and 9 MARTA board members and staff members were present. Thank you for your participation at this public hearing, which is now adjourned. Good evening.